Today, we are going to talk about the different types of conflict and how to identify conflict in a story. So, there are a couple of different types of conflict. There's individual versus individual. This can also be character versus character. And this is when two different characters are either battling something out or they have an argument about something. This will always be external because it's not happening in somebody's mind, right? So, when you are done reading the story, you're going to come through and you're going to find the different types of conflicts within the story. There's one that is not in the story, so you'll just cross that out before you push submit. Individual versus self, these are things that we are trying to or the characters, I should say, the characters are trying to battle within themselves. So this can be something like the character versus their self-confidence or the character versus a fear that they have or the character versus not being able to trust. These are all going to be internal conflicts because these are things that the character is dealing with themselves. Always going to be internal. You can tell the difference between internal versus external because external you could grab onto. So a character could grab onto another character. A character could not really grab on to their fear, right? That's not something that we can hold in our hands. However, if it's a character versus nature, they can hold on to like the damage that's caused from a tornado or something like that, or the damage that is caused by an animal, right? They could hold on to their flesh wound. So that's also going to be external. And then we have individual versus technology. This one can be confusing because a lot of times we think of technology as like a computer, but it's anything that's man made, that's not happening in nature that we create. So it could be a computer, it could be a window, it could be a house. It's anything that is man-made, and that, of course, will be an external conflict because it's something that we could hold in our hand and we could physically touch. Individual versus society. This is also going to be external because this is when an individual goes against the rules that are around them or the ideas that other people have around them. This isn't something that's going on inside of a character's mind. It's the characters around them saying, these are the rules, you have to follow these rules. Then we have individual versus the unknown. This is going to be an internal conflict because we can't hold the unknown. It's a fear almost that we have inside of ourselves of what's going to happen next. And it's always going to be internal. Then we have individual versus the supernatural. This is anything that's not doesn't happen naturally. So all of a sudden I can fly. That doesn't happen naturally. That's something that's made up, right? So we call that supernatural. And it will usually be an external conflict unless it's imagery and they're not actually flying. If it's a dream, then it could be internal conflict. So this one can be both. So you're going to read the story and you're going to tell me which parts or conflicts are each individual type of conflict. And then the last question says, how does a conflict drive the plot? When it's asking this, so if this was a movie, right, this is the beginning, and right here we have the 2 hour mark, because that's how long movies normally are. We have a main conflict right here. That is the original conflict or the original event that is changing everything for the main characters. So when a test asks you for the conflict, this is the conflict that they're talking about. A lot of movies have rising action, all of them should if they follow a plot diagram, right? And these are little mini conflicts that are building the suspense and making us more anxious that lead to the climax. This is also sometimes some sort of a big conflict, right? Like a big fight or something. However, this is not the original conflict that we are looking for. We're talking about this one all the way back here. What's the first conflict that changed everything? So when you're taking the test and it says, what's the conflict of the story? It doesn't want any of the conflicts that are in the rising action. It doesn't want any conflict in the climax. And sometimes there's even conflicts in the beginning that are like introductions to the characters. Like maybe a character is really angsty, or for example, in this story, they were worried about snakes, but that's not the main conflict of the story. The main conflict is what changed everything for the characters. So when it's asking you, how does the conflict drive the plot? It's talking about this conflict right here. I want you to finish filling this out and then push submit in Schoology. As always, if you have any questions, please email me and let me know.